Hello everyone and welcome back to Books with Carol Ann. Today we are going to go through all the books that I read in March. Whew, let's get started. Let's go through my story graph for the month and see some of the stats that I have. In March, I read 7 books, and let me tell you, I did not think that I would read 7 books. I think by mid-March, I had only read 2 books. I think I was maybe approaching a slump and I wasn't exactly sure. Like I was being really slow at reading. The first 2 books of the month took me half the month to read. And it's not because they were bad. I loved both of them. I had a really good reading month, but I just wasn't really finding time to read. And whenever I did have time to read, something else always came up, or I was just distracted and was just not possible to keep my eyes on the page. So I'm quite happy with the 7 books that I read. I definitely picked up in the second half of the month and read a lot more. I actually wrote down for the past week how many pages I read per day, and some of these numbers I think I haven't done in a good while. Usually the kind of numbers I do when I'm on holiday, and yeah, I was working full-time and extremely busy. So I don't really know what I was escaping, but I was escaping, okay? But yeah, 7 books, which equals to nearly 3,000 pages, 2,896 pages. Not too bad. It does say my average time to finish is 4 days, but like I said, I think that's not really accurate to the first 2 weeks of the month. Anyway. Ooh, my biggest reading day was the 22nd of March when I read 217 pages. Well done, me. Okay, now let's find out which books I read. The first book I read was Shadow and Storms by Helen Shura, which is the final book in the Legend of Tesmar series. Now, if you remember in the February wrap-up, I was saying how I spent the month reading the entire series, and I didn't just quite finish in February, so one of them left over in March. I absolutely adored this series. I won't tell you too much about what the book is about because obviously it's the final book. There's so many spoilers in pretty much everything that I would say. But this series was exceptional, and the finale, chef kiss. Absolutely adored it. Definitely a well-wrapped series, but also I'm very excited to reread Iron and Embers because it follows up that series so well. And I am so excited to, now that I know more about the previous series, to just dive into Iron and Embers and the next one and stay in that universe because absolutely love it. Love those characters. I need to see more of Cal and Kip. I feel like now that I got the background story on how, you know, they got to where they are, I love them even more, and I'm even more excited to see their adventures in the next series. And maybe they'll get their own book, their own series. Oh, are we pushing now? Helen, call me. The second book I read was Spring Awakening by J.S. Jasper. So this is a rugby sports romance. I'll show the actual cover because this is the proof cover with character sides, which, how gorgeous are these people? I love them. Look at the cat. The cat is a full-on character. I'm just gonna say it now. Spring Awakening by J.S. Jasper is a rugby sports romance where Mally is a PR specialist who hasn't really been able to find the right job, but she is starting off as the PR person. She is starting off as the publicity manager for her favorite local rugby team, which has just advanced to in the league. And so they finally, you know, have budgets and money to actually get a PR person and get that type of thing. And she has been a fan throughout her life. And especially she has been a fan of Zach. She has followed him throughout all his different clubs, not in a fangirl obsessive kind of way, but really just in a I love you as a sports person and I want to follow your career way. So I think this is a good premise to how the book starts. They bump into each other and Zach is a bit of a dick. I'm not gonna lie, he's a bit of a dick, but he's, bless his sweetheart soul, he just assumed that she was into him and wanted to, you know, have a one night stand with him. Like, he was expecting her to be in Fangirl, not to be his new colleague. So he kind of just dismisses her right away, and also like makes a comment about her purple hair, and she's like, what the fuck? So also it's like a really bad first day because no one comes to greet her, no one says hello. She's basically alone in the building the whole day, and she's like, did they forget about me? What is happening? So she kind of, you know, leaves that day and says she's actually doesn't have a job because they probably forgot about her, so she doesn't know if she's gonna come back. But that whole part, it lasts, you know, like 3 chapters, 2 chapters, 1 chapter, and it's over pretty quickly. I think mostly with this book, you have to know this is a friends to lovers sports romance. They pretty much really fancy each other from the get-go, but they don't actually end up doing anything until like 75%. JS Jasper, I will send you my therapy bill because so basically friends to lovers. Then there's a bit of an issue with Zach and his place, so he actually moves in with Mally. I don't know if that's a spoiler, but the forced proximity is so vital to how this book works, and also one of the reasons that they don't get together right away. So I thought it was really beautiful and I absolutely adored it. I recommend it. The next book I read was Nightshade by Autumn Woods. I absolutely adored this book. This is a dark academia mystery romance. I was a bit confused as to what that would entail. Anytime you put mystery in a, you know, in a genre, it doesn't really appeal to me. But my God, I absolutely inhaled. Oh, look, my nails match. Gotta take some photos now. I absolutely inhaled this book. This was so good. Public service announcement. This is the first in a duology, and I do not know when book 2 is coming out, but I have a feeling it's not going to be until summer next year. I know. I'm just as sad as you are, if not more. This book was gorgeous. So the premise of this is that Ophelia joins this university soror song who is very well known for being a bit of a university specialized in students who are billionaires, part of the mafia, and you know, that kind of like high elite student vibes. Ophelia is not any of this. The only reason that she got in is because her parents, both of them, used to work at the university, but they actually got murdered on site. Oops. So Ophelia joins the university mostly because of her, you know, parents dying. She didn't really follow her studies. She left school early, so she didn't really have the right grades to go into any other university, like literally anywhere else. She couldn't go. The only reason that she managed to get into soror song is, one, because, you know, someone murdered their parents at the university, and 2, because her parents used to work at the university, so they kind of felt like they owed her. But the reason that she wants to go to the university there, I'm just flipping through the book. It's so floppy as well. I love it. Side notes. This doesn't mean anything to you, but once you read it, it will, I promise. The reason that she wants to get into the university, aside from having nowhere else to go, is because she knows that her parents were murdered. She knows it wasn't just an accident. She thinks they were murdered, and she wants to find out exactly why and how and who did it, which is the mystery side of the dark academia romance. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was eating through this whole thing. This gave me fantasy vibe, but in a contemporary. Like, it was so atmospheric. It was beautifully written. You could really just feel as if you were immersed in that university. And my heart was just palpitating the whole time, anytime that Ophelia found herself in a situation that was a little scary. Um, and of course, the romance. I haven't even told you about the romance yet. Alex is the love interest in this book, and it turns out that Alex is the son of the manufacturer of the helicopter that killed her parents. So from the get-go, he's an enemy. And not just, contemporary romance enemy, like, haha, I hate you. Okay, no, actually, I love you. She hates him. She really full on hates him and wants his demise, considering to, kill him herself. He doesn't understand why, because obviously he hasn't put together the fact that she is the daughter of the two people that were killed in the accident. So he, throughout the whole book, doesn't really know what is her problem with him. So he's still, he flirts with her. He keeps on trying. He doesn't understand why, because, he's so hot. He's a rugby player. Again, two rugby romances in a row. I know. This isn't actually a sports romance though, but there are a couple sportsy moments, and he also keeps wearing his, actually, let me show you. Can you see? Is this blurry? Anyway, and look at that tie tattoo. Whew. Okay. Actually, while I say this, you should go see Autumn's Instagram, because the amount of art that she has, and also there's the whole feed is so aesthetic. I absolutely love it. Anyway, I don't know what I've told you about this book anymore. I feel like I keep jumping from subject to subject. But yes, I love this. There's some forced proximity element because they're both in the Nightshade house in the university, and they also have to work on a project together. There's a bit of epistolary romance where they write emails to each other because she blocked his number. So there's quite a few moments where it's so good. There's take care scenes. There's just, honestly, this book, if you haven't read it yet, please go and read it. The next book I read was Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. This is an accidental pregnancy romance. I really enjoyed that trope. I know a lot of people have issues with it and don't necessarily like it, which is fine. I think it's one of my favorite just because it's really adorable. So in Ready or Not, we meet Eve, who finds out from the get-go, literally the first paragraph, that she's pregnant. She recently had a one-night stand with a bartender, and this is the only possible baby daddy because she's not used to having a one-night stand. We follow her as she goes to tell her best friend that she's pregnant, who doesn't really react that well, which we keep finding more background as to why, and really see them struggle in that relationship. I thought that was really well done. We see her at her job that's one of those unfulfilling jobs that she has to have because we have to pay bills and rent and things like that. And also she's always had a dream. No. And then finally we see her go see the baby daddy and tell him that he is about to be a father. Yay! Turns out that he has a girlfriend. He did not have a girlfriend when they hooked up. They had just broken up, but now they're back together. And yeah, I think that was a really entertaining part of the book for me. We also see her relationship with Willa's brother, her best friend's brother. So all three of them have grown up together. Eve's parents are a lot older. She was an oopsie baby, but you know, in a married couple. They had her when they were, I think, 52. So she has three older brothers who are all at least 15 years older than her. I think even more than that. I think 19 years older than her. Anyway, they're older. She doesn't really have a relationship with the brothers that much. Her parents have passed away now. The ones that she had the most relationships with growing up was Willa, Willa's brother, and Willa's mom, who was a single mom looking after Willa and her brother. I don't remember his name. Oh my God. Shep. That's why I didn't remember. Shepherd? I don't know. Shep is Willa's brother, and so all three of them have had this relationship growing up. They kind of always hung out together. He is older brother, so he moved to New York first, and then Willa and Eve followed a couple years later when they moved to New York for university. So in this book, we see Eve struggle with the fact that she's pregnant. We see her struggle with, you know, the baby daddy not being available. She thought maybe they were going to fall in love, but obviously they're not because he's in a relationship. We see her struggle with her best friend because Willa's reacting weirdly to her being pregnant. We see her get closer to Shep because he's probably the only one in the whole book that's really supportive of her being pregnant. And we see her deal with her work and how that's going, and her being pregnant there. And we also see her relationship with the nurse at the hospital that I thought was really great. I thought the book was beautiful. It was so well written. I had read Cara Bastone before, but only those audio exclusive novella that she had. I'm pretty sure they were novellas because the audios were quite short. But yeah, I think I read 3 of these and I thought they were hilarious. And I absolutely adored them. This obviously was dealing with a lot heavier subjects, but Cara was really able to still fit in that humor amongst everything. Like, Eve was hilarious. I absolutely adored her as a female main character. And yeah, it was just great and I really recommend it, but please check the trigger warnings for grief and miscarriage, I would say. This month in March, I also read Not in My Book by Katie Holt. I wasn't really expecting to read it. This was really very much a mood reader. Let's pick it up. I really enjoyed it. It was really fun. If you liked Beach Read and The Hating Game, then possibly this is the perfect book for you. In this one, we follow the 2 main characters whose name I've forgotten already, Rosie and Aiden. Okay, so Rosie is a romance writer who is just about affording this one course at university and is working part-time in a restaurant to make sure to, you know, afford living in, I think it's in New York, and also the course at university. She has left her home state, in which she had a really long-lasting relationship, but the guy didn't believe in her and just thought that she should just be a housewife, and her going to New York to study was just plain stupid because what did she think she was going to do anyway, right? Romance? How silly. And yeah, so she got rid of that. Thank you. Goodbye. And so at this point where we meet her in the book, she's kind of, you know, she's a romance writer and she loves the genre and she loves reading it and she really wants to write it, but she's at that point in her life where she doesn't think that she's ever going to experience that love, and so she's having trouble writing it. We also meet Aiden, who is a literary fiction writer, and he's the type of guy that will scoff. This is one of those words you only see written. Who rolls his eyes at whenever someone, you know, writes romance. He doesn't believe in the genre of romance. He doesn't find it, like, he doesn't take it seriously. He doesn't think he requires skill and definitely not a university degree for that. I don't think that that's what he actually believes. I think that's what we're just shown from Rosie's point of view. And so they have a group together where they each week they discuss what they've written that week. So I think they're meant to write one chapter per week. They send it through to the whole group. They read it and then they discuss it in class and kind of criticize it and pinpoint issues and where they went well, when it went wrong, all of that. And Rosie and Aiden have this kind of like habit of just knocking heads every single week at that meeting, where to the point where the teacher has to pull them apart and be like, okay, no more. I don't want this happening anymore. We're going to change that. Either you're getting kicked out of university. I just need you to change classes. I don't care if you're not able to do that anymore. Just, I don't want you in my class. Or, little asterisk notes, maybe what you should do is write a book together. And that will force you to understand each other's genres and respect it and respect each other. Obviously, they're not happy with that. There's discussions about romance versus love story, and it's all about the happy ending, etc., which I fully believe in. I've had multiple conversations at work about this and with like other readers, but I think in Rosie's head they're always gonna write a romance, and in Aiden's head they're always gonna write a literary fiction. So he really wants to kill the characters, for example. So obviously there's lots of knocking heads throughout the whole book. And it turns out that when they start writing their novels, they're really writing about each other, which is really funny and really, fun way to do this book. And I will mention specifically, there is one scene where they're writing when the characters have sex for the first time, and they're on the phone while they're writing this, because it was basically like none of them wanted to be in charge of that chapter. So they were like, okay, fine, well, let's co-write this chapter then, rather than doing one off, basically. So they're on the phone writing each sentence about them like having sex together. It's just, I think that was one of the best scenes of the book, and all the people that I've talked about this book to feel the same way. But the way that this was written, with like, heavy breathing on the phone, and it's like, your turn, I'm done, my turn. And it was just like them like basically touching each other via a Word document. And it was just, yeah. Anyway, you should read it. The next book I read was Hunger in His Blood by Zoe Draven. This was an ARC that I received from the author. I believe the book is out today, tomorrow, this week for sure. And yeah, I have loved every other book in this series. So this is the third book. Desire in His Blood. I don't remember the titles for the other two. I'll put them up here for you, but I've talked about them in this channel already, because they're a great example of marriage of convenience, and also of vampires and sci-fi. And if you love that kind of stuff, you should read Zoe Draven. So Hunger in His Blood is another accidental pregnancy trope. 2 in a month. Let's go. So Hunger in His Blood. So basically, Hunger in His Blood is part of the Brides of Kylor series. So there's always this intent that there's going to be a bride, and a Kylor. So the Kylor are an alien vampire race, and we've been following the brothers of Kylor. So they're a whole family. I think there's 5 or 6 of them, and we currently have 3 books, so I'm assuming there's more coming. There's a lot of background story in this book that I don't really want to explain to you, because honestly that's a lot. But basically what you need to know is that Irina is a housekeeper in the castle. She's a human. And then we've got Calder, who's the keeper He owns the house, he owns the castle, he is like the mayor of the state or town or whatever. And so it's kind of frowned upon for him to be with a housekeeper. So he, instead of being honest about their relationship, he basically makes her sign a contract that says that she's going to be his official blood giver, and so he's only going to drink blood from her, and she is basically promoted, so she doesn't have to do the housekeeping anymore, but now she just gets to do whatever she wants, and as long as she's available whenever he needs blood. And she's always been in love with him just because he's this gorgeous Kylor, and he's gorgeous, he seems really nice, and he is gorgeous. Have I said that? But yeah, so she's always kind of had feelings for him, but you know, the kind of feelings you have like a crush, like you don't really know him, but you just think that he would be perfect. A bit of a parasocial relationship, if you will. Whenever the blood sucking happens, there's like this venom that goes into the human, that kind of makes them horny, basically. Why am I explaining this book? If you like aliens, if you like vampires, if you like accidental pregnancy and marriage of convenience, then please just read this book. I'm not going to explain it any longer. I absolutely adored it. I am planning on buying all the physical copies of the series. I love this book. Please go read it. Don't make me talk about it anymore. The last book I read in March was God of Malice. Wait, hold on. There it is. I read God of Malice by Rena Kant. This was my first Rena Kant ever. And I'm currently reading book 2. I think against my will. I don't really know. I'm not really a dark romance fan. I have read a few and I have enjoyed a few. But overall, they're just too dark for me. I like my happy books a lot more. And they're not inherently unhappy, but there's just some things that happen in these that I'm like, what? But this is basically what was happening in this. Every single chapter, especially the first few, I was like, what the actual fuck am I reading? I was planning on DNFing pretty much every 50 pages. I was like, nope, this is not for me. Why am I reading this? And then 10 minutes later, I would pick it up again and read some more. So I think I was just mostly curious about what was going to happen. And that is entirely why I picked up the next book as well. But yeah, I don't recommend this book. I don't really recommend it. But if you like dark romance, you probably already have read this anyway. Yeah, this is very dark. I didn't not enjoy it, but I also don't think that I did enjoy it. I'm honestly really not sure. I'm still very unclear as to what I feel about this book, about this series. I think maybe I'll know more once I read the second book. But again, I'm not sure I'm going to finish the second book because every time I see something weird happen on page, I'm like, why am I here? Why am I here? But they're a little addictive. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, so I don't know. Check the trigger warnings because I'm pretty sure there's 50 pages of trigger warnings in this, and it is not for the faint of heart. Definitely not. Yeah, that's all I can say, really. So those were the 7 books that I read in March. Let me know if you have any questions on the books. Let me know if you have read Rena Kant before. If you have read any of the authors or any of the books that I talked about. Let's chat in the comments. And yeah, thank you for watching and see you next week.